industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Out of dead carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleveland, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleveland, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help. Shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give them a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store, they got you covered.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
I don't know that it's a radio show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to No Judgment here. I am your host, Tish Ross. This evening, we have such a dear couple joining us tonight, Mike and Terrie Elmer. Their YouTube channel is Empty Homestead. They are coming on to share, unfortunately, a tragedy that they have been a part of, a club that nobody, no family, no parents should ever have to be a part of. And I'm talking about the death of a child, and whether our children pass when they're young or older, the loss is excruciating, and I speak that from experience. I want to welcome everyone that has come in to support Mike and Terrie. I thank you all. I am honored that they have said yes to come on and share their story. And I feel like I know a lot of people that have lost their sons and or daughters. Ironically, I know a lot of people that have lost their sons. I think and I feel like when we come on and we share our stories, whether they're stories of grief, whether they are stories of goodness, greatness, success, maybe not success, maybe defeat. I feel like that there's somebody on the other side of this radio station, on the other side of this microphone, on the other side of these channels that are just waiting to know that they are not alone. And so it is an honor, and I am grateful to introduce and welcome Mike and Terrie Elmer, Big Mike, as he is known to his YouTube family. Mike and Terrie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you both for coming in. I'm so appreciative. And I have to tell you that you guys are so loved. This is the most people I've ever had on my radio channel ever in my life. You guys have a lot of people that are here loving on you already. And there have already been comments that said that of others that have lost their sons. And so I feel like that this will be something good. You know, I think loss as it is so hard. And I think no matter if you've lost a child or a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, a friend, that loss is hard, right? I don't feel like we can compare losses. We are not in other people's shoes. But what I do know is that the loss of a child, one that we share in the experience, is probably the most excruciating pain that I have ever experienced. I've lost both of my parents, and while that was quite hard, I believe that losing a child has been the most difficult. And I hope that I don't ever experience anything in the future that is any harder, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to get started. I mean, the radio show, we have an hour, and it tends to fly. And I feel like we have a lot to discuss. And again, I thank you both so much for coming on and joining me and sharing your story and saying yes. Mike and Terrie, I want to know a little bit about little Mike. I want to know, what kind of life did little Mike have from birth to what kind of child he was, to teenage, to adult. And then we'll move into a little bit further. But tell me a little bit about little Mike, so people that are listening will hear what kind of a child, teenager, and young adult he was.
Well, Mike was what we call a military brat. He was born into the military. I was in the military, born at Fort Polk, Louisiana, when I was stationed there with 5th Infantry Division. He was one of those kids. Of course, he was our first child. And you're always so careful. You're reading books and all this stuff to make sure you're doing it right. We were so far away from family that we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, it was just like driving us nut, every little thing, running to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But we lived when he was born, we were living in a trailer park on the backside of Fort Polk, Louisiana. We didn't know what we were doing. We were waiting on Army housing to move on base. And we stayed in this double wide trailer. And our luckiest part was we had an old Cajun woman that lived right next door to us. and she would come pound on the door and tell us what was wrong just by listening to the child cry and stuff like that. So she basically raised us in that first year to be parents. Very harsh with us and very direct, and I guess that's what we needed. But he was a good kid. He hated sleeping, and had to drive him around the streets and stuff in my old Scottsdale pickup with no muffler on it. He'd fall asleep, then I had to carry him in every single night because we were lost.
Well,
Right.
Clarify. I'm not
His
his
biological mother.
mother. I wasn't there when he was
Yeah.
young.
And then he grew up. He played t-ball. He played soccer. He did all that stuff. And I was always coaching his teams when I wasn't deployed or I was going, I was out of town, which was a lot over his life. But he was just a sweet kid. Never had any real problems with him, except he was very stingy. Then Kevin was born, and I think Mike tried to kill him like 40 times, putting a pillow, because he was an only child. And all of a sudden, 3 years later, this other child comes in,
Right.
and he wasn't going to share his mom, and his mom loved him to death. That was her everything, her first child. And she just changed. Very protective mom, but she loved both of the kids. And so we had to always watch Mikey because, he did not like Kevin. I'll tell you what. It was like if Kevin was learning how to walk, Mike would walk by and push him. He'd bang his head off the coffee table or do something. He goes, "I didn't do it." So he knew his line right then. And so we moved over back to Germany. We stayed in Germany. They went to German schools and stuff like that. And Mike, he was in the DOD school, Department of Defense public schools that they have over there. They put cameras in the classrooms and stuff, and they approached us and said, "Hey, your son is ADD." And I said, "Well, how do you know that? We didn't take him to a doctor. Number two, what is ADD?" And they were explaining to us attention deficit disorder.
Right.
And you can, because they have these workers that's all they do is they watch the kids in the first grades and kindergartens and stuff like that. And so I said, wow. So we went to a doctor, and they put him on Ritalin back then. And I trusted the doctor. He knew what he was doing. It'll make him focus. It'll do all these things when he's in school and stuff. And so he was on Ritalin probably first, second, and third grade, fourth grade, 4 years. And I deployed to on a mission, and I was gone for a year. And I came back, and Kevin has outgrown Mike, and Mike's just this little skinny, scrawny kid. He was nothing like I remembered when I left. And he was always crying, and he'd always be fidgety, and he'd pick his nose till it bled, and he did all these things. And I'm going, this is not normal. So I went to an Army doctor because we went to a German doctor. I went to Landstuhl Medical Center, and they explained to me what ADD is, what Ritalin is, how that's all the side effects. And I said, well, if it's supposed to calm you down and stop the fidgeting, why? Because they gave him a dosage. When it wears off, they go back to that nervous self that they are,
right?
That they were created like. And I said, this ain't right. So we got to get him off of this. And so he was what, 8 or 9, and he was still a little scrawny kid. And I got him off there, and the doctor said, yeah, this is not right. His growth platelets, everything stopped. So
Wow.
we took him off Ritalin. We moved back to the States, and I got him off that stuff. I said, I am not doing this to my child. And in 1 year, he grew 7.5 inches. And so he started having joint problems because his body and muscle and everything wouldn't catch up to his skeletal structure.
Right.
He was having all these problems with his feet and everything. So within, by the time he was 10, he had already caught back up to Kevin. They were both tall kids. And Kevin's right now, he's 6 foot, almost 6'7". And it just stunted his growth. But he was still not, and we kept working with him, and the homework was excruciating with a child with ADD, trying to get them to soak it all up and stuff like that. And,
yes.
he got into junior high. I'm guessing he was in 9th grade, and all of a sudden he started doing better in school for some strange reason. And come to find out, he was doing pot with the other kids and stuff like that. And, Ritalin is a stimulant, and when you're ADD, they clash together to calm you down. And so he was doing that. He was doing good. And then he got into high school. He got caught with pot on his person in school. They threw him out of school. I had to go back to the school board and plead with them to put him back into school. And they said, we will not put him back into school until he completes a drug counseling program and stuff like that. So we did that. We got him back into school. And then he finally he graduated high school on time. And then he started getting into the harder drugs, methamphetamine, heroin, couldn't keep a job. He would, every time, as a parent, you see that, and, you had those struggles when they were little. Now, this is a whole new ballpark that you're dealing with, with drugs and stuff like that. And he got really bad, and he came to me and he said, Dad, I need some help. So I worked with my insurance companies and saved up money, and I drove him to Lincoln, Nebraska from Missouri, to one of the best team rehab centers that was run by Nebraska, the University of Nebraska. And he stayed there for 10 weeks. And I depleted all my savings accounts. I sold stuff to keep him there. They kept telling me he's doing great and so on and so forth. And finally, he graduated from the program, and I went there and picked him up. And I'm thinking it wasn't a week later, I got a call from the Lebanon St. John's Hospital saying that Mike had been admitted on an overdose. So I got there, the cops were there and everything. And the cops told me, they said, well, apparently he was dumped out of a car because he OD'd, and he was laying on the side of the road, and somebody saw him and called the ambulance.
My God.
And that's how they picked him up. They just left him there on the side of the road to die. And they said, we had to revive him and stuff. And I'm going, oh my Lord. And then of course, the promises come, and the promises was come, and my heart was broken to no end.
And when you say the promises come, you mean the promises come from little Mike?
Yeah. When drug addicts they will try to sell you the farm. I mean, how they're going to improve, how they're going to stop, and how they're going to change their life around and this and that. And it's just a facade to get you off their case.
Yes.
And I didn't see that at the time. And I just said, man, this methamphetamine is like, it's the devil's drug. It's got its claws deep inside of me. And then I got the call from Greene County, Missouri, that's Springfield, Missouri area, and he was in Greene County lockup. And I said, well, what are you doing in there? Well, he got a job with a guy that had a farm, and he said, I'm just staying there for the weekends, Dad, and this and that. And he was going down into Texas, and this guy had these kids hauling bales of marijuana back up to Missouri, and he would pay them for doing all this stuff for him. And he got caught in Missouri. They tried to pull him over, typical YouTube police chase and stuff like that. And they got him, and he got 3 5-year sentences off of that.
Wow.
At age 20. And so he did that. He served something like 50% of the time, and they let him out on parole. And he said, man, I'll never do that again. 2 days later, back in the hospital, overdosed. And it was just so trying on my heart. And I mean, I cried so much, so many times, that I'd just throw up every time I got a phone call. I got nervous that I didn't know when I was going to get the call that my son that I love so much, but it didn't happen then. He went back to prison 2 more times. They let him out again. And he was living in an old rundown house outside of Dixon, Missouri, with a bunch of other drug addicts and stuff. And I'm just saying, just come home. And
Mike, I'm gonna interrupt you there for just a second. And
sure.
It is hard to ever get to the root cause of addiction. And I speak from experience with Mike and I's son. Of course, like Terry, Ben was not my biological son. He's Mike's, but he's still our son. And and I'm sure, I mean, it's so, I mean, every addict's story is extremely similar in terms of the manipulation, the lies, the I'm gonna quit. I promise I'm gonna quit. I'm never doing that again. And then it's the next day or next few days that they continue or pick it back up. But do you know what the root of the problem was? I mean, what started it? Or
well, at that time, I was just got out of the military. I was going to college, and I was just focusing classes like on psychology and stuff like that, because I needed someone smarter than me, because obviously I wasn't doing the job, and I wasn't built to do that job. To get somebody off of drugs,
right?
And it all stems back. What I've learned over the years is there was an exposure to a drug in his adolescent years that drug made him feel normal. And he searched and used everything he could to find that normal again. So his brain would slow down, and he could focus, and he could, just function. And I think that was, Mikey and I had a conversation about this, and he goes, when I'm high, I feel normal. And I said, And every time it's a little bit more and it's a little bit more, and your body can only take in so much at one time. And it was, my son Kevin was always so angry at Mike. And he's listening, by the way. And he was always so mad because, you know, Mike, get your life together. Stop doing this. Stop doing this. And I kept telling Kevin, I said, it's a disease. This is just something you just don't, okay, I'll just stop. But he hit rock bottom and almost died so many times. Death was not rock bottom for him. And then if you're a drug addict and you know them, they don't keep jobs. They get if they work a week and get a paycheck, you don't see them again.
Right.
And that was Mike. And so he went back to prison under larceny, home invasions. Heck, one time they stole a U-Haul truck, had a friend that worked in Walmart, and he called and said, hey, we just got these flat screens, and they parked in the back. They loaded up all these things on these carts that they deliver them in, took them up to St. Louis and sold them for $200 a piece. He got busted for that. He couldn't go. He was the judge, listened to Walmart. He could never step foot in a Walmart ever again. He went in there to buy some cigarettes because he was stoned and he didn't remember he wasn't supposed to be in there, and back in lockup, back up to Miller County, spent another 90 days in lockup and stuff. And then we were moving to Arizona. I took a job at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And this is like one of the few interactions Terrie had.
I had never really, I think I may have met him once prior to that. And it was like the day before we were leaving to go to Arizona. And he came out and he started talking to me. He's like, I really want to get off this stuff. I've got to get away from here. That's the only way I'm going to do it. I want to move with you guys. I want to go to veterinary school because he loved animals.
Oh, big time.
I said, oh, that'd be awesome. You know, we'd be happy to have you come along. And
I hadn't told her any of the horror stories prior to that.
And we left to go somewhere. And we came back, and anything worth value was gone out of the house.
All my rifles.
We had everything packed. He took everything. I mean, it was anything that was worth anything.
Yeah, they found him in all these pawn shops across the county and all this stuff.
And he was gone again.
He was gone.
It was like he just disappeared, and that was the first real interaction I'd ever had with him. Was that?
And so then later on, I mean, we ended up in Korea, and I got a call on my birthday, the 23rd of January, 2020. And Kevin was on the phone and said Mike had died. I said, where's he at? He said he was in prison again, up in Pacific. It's outside of St. Louis. And he's in the hospital, Dad. They don't think he's going to make it. And all I did was make a phone call to my boss and said, I'm going to the States. This was just, 15 days before the whole COVID pandemic hit. And I was on the next day. We were both on a flight back to the United States, and we got there, and you're visualizing all the stuff that you're going to see when you get there. And Mike was laying in a hospital bed at a great hospital. But he was leg irons on his legs and his hands, like he was really going to go somewhere. And there was a prison guard sitting there watching him and stuff, and he was on life support. And the doctors came and briefed us, and they said, we're going to do a couple of more tests on him. We haven't seen no response, no brain activity. They did the tests, and the doctor came to me and said, he is clinically dead. and he's been dead ever since he came into the hospital. So all that time I'm sitting there holding his hand and praying to God. And I'm going to tell you, people that don't know me, I don't blame God one bit.
Right.
He strengthened my love for him. And when they told me we need the word from you to shut everything off, I lost it.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to regroup, and we'll be right back. You guys come back so we can finish listening to Mike and Terrie and their story of loss.
Wilfred Brimley for Loafing Dog.
I'm Wilfred Brimley for Loafing Dog. You know, when I get the hankering for a hot dog, I go to Cleveland, Texas. Just a couple blocks off the square, they got Loafing Dog. They got the Neely Dog, the Mary Sunshine Dog, the Casey Dog, and the Shirley Dog. Why, they even got the Pacer Dog, the Brooklyn Dog, and the Jim Dog. Can't forget the Shane Dog, or the Joy Dog, and the Monty Dog. I like that fool. The Nakia Dog and the Braxton Dog round things off. Why, they even got a kids menu too.
Loafing Dog, 208 East Chambers Street, Cleveland, Texas. Lunch, catering, or takeout, plus outdoor seating. Phone numbers 817-556-1040.
This is Wilfred Brimley. And don't forget, Loafing Dog won't give you diabetes.
Out of deck carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleveland, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleveland, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help. Shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give them a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store, they got you covered.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
The voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
We are back. The second half of the show. Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free on Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store. Check out our lineup and more at JocoCommunityRadio.com. This episode and more is brought to you by Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your Texas sales rep at 844.tex.hail. That's 844-839-4245. Be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. I have no words, actually. I was looking at my mic, who is here and monitoring comments, and I thank everyone for coming in to support Mike and Terrie, for them sharing their story. I wish I could give a shout out to every single one of you guys. Unfortunately, radio is, we're limited on time, and I want to make sure that I respect Mike and Terrie's time. But I thank you all. I know that they thank you all for coming in to show them some love and support. Again, I have no words. I do want to say this. Joco Community Radio if you, I so appreciate everyone subscribing to my channel here, No Judgment here with Tish Ross. But also, if you get a moment, run on over to JoCo Community Radio YouTube and Facebook page. They have a lot of amazing shows. There's shows on relationships. There's sports shows. There are just so many different podcasts listed under their YouTube channel, and you might want to go and check it out. I'm sure that they have something that would interest you, and I appreciate them for supporting my channel. Mike and Terry, you've got so much comments here, sympathies and prayers for both of you. There's love that is sent to each one of you or both of you. Beth Cornett, she is listening as well. And Beth, we're sorry for your loss as well. I know that Mike and Terry have been sending prayers up for you, as have Mike and I. And I'm sure this whole community, YouTube community, for your loss, as it has been just 2 weeks as you have lost your son as well. Mike, I want to get back to you because time flies. We have 30 minutes left and we have so much more to talk about. And again, I thank you so much because, as we were going to commercial break, I looked over at my mic and it is hard for me to talk about this, but, I look over at him and the tears are flowing as well. He knows your pain and we know your pain. And Terry and I met my son, Ben, or Mike's biological son, Ben, when Ben was older. And I unfortunately only knew him under the influence most of the time. The majority of the time, I would say about 99% of the time, he was under the influence. But there were bits and pieces that I treasure. I mean, I just hold near and dear to my heart the times that he was not under the influence, when he was clean and I could have conversation with him. And, we love them regardless. And it's, I think that what kills me and hurts me the most for both Mikes is the phone call, and for Kevin, you're listening. What an amazing brother you are. I don't know you, but we love you, and I know that you are amazing brother to your big brother, and so thank you for being here and supporting your dad and Terry. But when we left off, Mike, you said that you were in the hospital room. He was still on life support, and you were holding his hand.
Yeah. So the doctor came in and said, we did the test. There's nothing there. The machine's raising his chest. Everything's artificial. He's not coming back. And we need your permission to shut everything off. And that is when I lost it. I was in the hallway and I kept looking at Terry and Kevin. I said, how do I do that?
It's okay.
It was just too excruciating for me to do that. And thank God the doctor had a bedside manner that was just heavenly.
Well, and it helped too. There was a hospital pastor there, and she was amazing. Yes. She helped so much. Yeah, both Mike and Kevin. Yeah, she was wonderful.
Kevin was more angry.
Yeah,
that he lost his brother. Very, very angry. And all I could do was just keep grabbing him and hugging him with my soul. So I told him to turn it off. Right after that happened, these people from the organ donors wanted to talk to me. I was in no mood to talk organ donation. Trust me. but they were so respectful and so gentle. And I go, I didn't even want to talk about that. And then they told me that each time Mike went into prison, and they had a list of them, every time he went into prison, he had signed a card that he wanted to give his organs to somebody if they were worth anything. And I'm going, what? That didn't sound like Mike. That didn't sound like Mike. He was going to give somebody something. And I go, and I looked at it and I seen his signature on it. I'm going, holy smokes. And then I calmed down. For some reason, some way, I just felt like if that was God's plan to take a drug addict, and one of the things I kept thinking about was somebody's walking around with my son's eyes, and I don't want to know who it is. The other parts of his organs and stuff like that were basically, they didn't have a washing machine to get out what was wrong with those parts.
Gotcha.
But it was his eyes was the only thing that they could take because he was a drug addict. And he had been in prison for so long. But when they told me how Mike died in prison with a fatal dose of fentanyl and methamphetamine, 2 lethal doses. And I go, whoa, what? And out of everything we did, we had to go to the prison where he died and pick up his belongings. And I mean, I was a cop, and I know there's only 2 ways you're going to get drugs inside that prison. It's either the staff or delivery, when they bring supplies in and stuff like that. And I'm just going, wow. And I do remember a news reporter contacting my son and saying, hey, we'd like to do a story on your brother. And he asked for my information, or she did, because that was the 23rd drug-related death in that prison in the last 2 years.
Wow. I don't understand that at all. I just don't.
Whoa. And I talked to her, and I told her everything that I knew. And apparently they ran it because I never seen it because I went back to Korea. So burying your son, like Terry told me about parenting. Nobody is ready for this.
Right.
Okay. The only way that I found out after the fact is you have a son or a daughter that is young, they're in elementary school. To me, the way the world is, and the hundreds and thousands of people that are dying from fentanyl, heroin, overdose, whatever it is, start educating yourself now about life as a teenager and a young adult. Educate yourself now. Get on the internet. Find everything you can about teenage addiction and stuff like that. Read, and arm yourself. Everybody has a gun. Everybody has a rifle. Arm yourself with the knowledge. And this is the one thing that I can tell you. I was an enabler. I gave my kids everything that they needed, that they wanted, because I was always gone. I felt guilty. I wanted to make up for it, They didn't have to work. I paid their insurance. I paid for their car, their gas, their spending money. I said, all you have to do is go to school.
Right.
That's your job. And I gave them everything they wanted that I thought they needed. And I tried to be my boys' friend. And I will tell you, stop being their friend.
You can be their friend when they're adults.
Right.
Kids need structure. Kids need parents more. They got enough friends. They have way too many friends. You know, you can raise your kid and we take them to church every Sunday and we do this and they have a curfew and this and that. And I bring the iron hammer down on the kids. 5 minutes with a new friend, you're old news now. Okay. My boys, as soon as they got their first girlfriend, the cockiness came out, all this other stuff came out. And we had some come to Jesus moments. I mean, I was at a point where I didn't know what to do. I tried everything. I spent my life savings. I did everything I could. And then one night Mike came home and he just started smarting off to me. And I didn't see my son no more. And one punch knocked him out, chipped his tooth, broke his nose, a vessel in his nose, eye swelled up. And yeah, that's not good parenting. But that's when a parent who doesn't have the tools to deal with it is the final straw. And it hurts me to say that, but I was so lost and I was so ill prepared to be a single parent because his mom and I, we had broken up in 2000 and she moved back to Germany and I was in the States. And then the boys later on came to live with me. They went with their mom because that's mom, but then they wanted to come back to the States and I took them back in and I tried to raise them the best I could. Man, when I see single moms out there with 2, 3, 4, 5, my mom with 7 kids, I have so much respect for them. My mom was not a nice person raising 6 girls and 1 boy. Okay. I swear she was a saint in my eyes after I became an adult and we had the relationship that we had that I cherish so much. We have relationships with our kids, Brittany, Austin, and Kevin, because they're adults. Kevin calls me and says, Dad, what do I do? I said, oh, this is child's play. Let me tell you. Was I like this? I said, you were like that. But they're adults and now they're our friends and they're the best relationships we have with anybody is our kids. So I just tell everybody out there, be a parent now. They'll be your best friends when they grow up. And that is just an awesome blessing.
And that's not to say
have that.
You can't have fun and do great things with your kids.
But that's parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't try to make them your best friend and make them happy all the time.
Exactly.
Listen to your children. Pay attention. Don't be like when kids speak to parents, it really means something to them. Stop what you're doing and pay attention because later on in life, if you can talk to them now and you have conversations with them, guess what? They will continue to talk to you and you'll get to know their little quirks and stuff like that. Then you'll know when something's wrong.
Exactly. Mike, I believe, and I thank you so much for, your parenting advice. There are a lot of comments here and I have to say as well, being a single mom myself and my kids' father chose to not participate in their lives and still doesn't, but I, not knowing, parented out of guilt. And I see now how hard it is for them to unlearn what I enabled and allowed. It's very hard. So I think that is the most that is the best advice, that you still parent regardless of the hard situations that we are in, whether it's a single mom, a single dad, whether it's the loss, whether it's a job that takes us away because we're working on providing for our children. We still parent with love, but we don't parent or not parent out of guilt, which means giving them the moon, giving them everything because we're not around, because we're working, because we are lost a sibling, or because the other parent is not involved. And I think that is such great advice. So if you're a single parent out there, or if you're going through some really tough stuff, which everyone does, there are seasons come and seasons go, but if you're parenting and you have littles or young kiddos, keep your head on straight as much as you can. Like you said, parent responsibly. We don't have to be our children's friends. And the better we parent when they're younger, the more fun you get to have when they're older. Of course, like Terrie said, you still enjoy and have fun when they're little. But it's better for both. It's better for the parent. It's better for the child, especially when they become adults, to be able to support themselves, to be able to venture out on their own. And before I miss this comment, your daughter Brittany says, "I love you, Dad."
I love you.
There are a lot of comments.
I don't think I ever pass up an opportunity to tell our kids that I love them, even when I'm mad. Kevin will tell you that. I mean, even since they were little, I hug them. I love you so much. And then you see their friends, and he'll be leaving with his friends and stuff when they were teenagers. And you'd hear Kevin, "Love you, Dad." Just scream it out. And his buddies go, "You say that to your dad?" He goes, "Man, F you. He's my dad." Stuff like that. And it makes you feel good that the love is there. Even to this day, he calls me Dad, and "I love you, Dad." And he says that to his kids every single day. But I will tell you this one thing. I never buried Mike. One of Mike's things that we talked about is he said, "I don't want to be in a box in the ground," and stuff like that. And he goes, "Just cremate me, Dad." And I remember that conversation. So he was cremated. And one of the things, Kevin was there at the hospital, and they give you this coin for the donation of your organs and stuff like that, and a blanket. And I made sure I gave that to Kevin to take it home. And so the kids, his kids, Zachary and Alice, can have something. And then I talked to Kevin about cremating Mike. That's what he told me he wanted to do and stuff like that. And he goes, "Well, what are you going to do?" Kevin was Mike's best friend. Kevin would die for Mike. And trust me, Kevin has fought fights. Mike wasn't a fighter. Kevin's the fighter, and he would protect his older brother. And no ifs, ands, or buts. He had his 6 o'clock all the time. And if you're military, you know what that means. And so right now, I sent Mike's mom a metal heart with his ashes in it. She lives in Germany, in a little mount thing and stuff like that. So she has him there. We have the same thing here when you walk into our house. And I gave the urn to Kevin. And his kids, when they go off to school and stuff, they always, "Love you, Uncle Mikey." And when he told me that, I go, wow. I mean, they never even met him, but they seen all those pictures on Facebook and everything about him growing up and when he was a little kid and stuff like that. And that touched me, that they didn't know who he was. They knew he was their dad's brother and how much he loved him. And he lives on through those kids.
He does.
And
he does. That is so beautiful. That is
crying like a baby.
No, I mean, my goodness, I mean, one of the things that my Mike and I always say is don't be afraid to ask us about Ben, because we love to talk about him. I think a lot of people are nervous to bring up, to ask, anything about Ben and since he's been gone. But we are so excited to be able to share his life with people. You don't have to tiptoe. And I believe I speak for a lot of, maybe not all, but for a lot of parents who have lost a child, is ask us, because we want to tell you all about Ben. And I feel like we got a glimpse of little Mike, and even with the addictions, he's still obviously an amazing son. And Big Mike, I have to say, you're an awesome dad. And I can't even thank you enough. I don't think thank you is the words to tell you how grateful I am and how much I appreciate you and Terrie coming on. And we didn't get to touch on grief. I would love to have both of you come back on, because I feel like Terrie and I probably had a lot of the same situation in terms of, for me, my Mike, after we lost Ben, he changed. It was just, and it changes you. I mean, most definitely. And I don't want to say that in an ugly way, because I love Mike with my whole heart and soul. But when you lose someone, it changes who you are. And our marriage almost didn't make it through. They say that the death of a child can, or anyone, I guess, can make you or break you. It almost broke us, but God intervened. And
I think that Terrie's support was what got me through everything. Every time I talk to Kevin, I just get off the phone and I just cried afterwards. But she was my rock. And I would, if people remember one thing, you're not a bad parent. I blamed myself. I failed my kid. My kid's dead because I failed as a parent. You don't fail as a parent. You're just not equipped to be a counselor and a social worker and all that stuff. And it's so hard. It's so easy to blame yourself, and you can't blame yourself. You're not a bad parent. You're doing everything humanly possible, because there's one thing in the life, your whole life, that is so pure and so unconditionally loved, is your children.
Yes.
They're your children from the cradle to the stone.
Yes.
And you should never have to outlive your children, but you're not a bad parent. You're just not equipped to be a drug counselor to help somebody. And they'll lie to you, they'll promise you, and what you have to do as a parent that's just water off a duck's butt. Okay?
That's true.
Get them the help that they need. And like every drug and rehab that anybody goes to, you got to take them out of their conditions. Mike kept coming back to the same conditions, to the same people, and you can't get a fresh start, because you tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are.
We have a couple of seconds left, Mike and Terrie. What are some final words that I want to just quickly say? Thank you so much. You've done so much good here, and little Mike's legacy has been so helpful here. We're getting ready to hop off the air, but give us one word to describe.
Love them.
Yep.
Love them.
I appreciate you both. I want to have you both come back on so we can talk about grief and moving forward. Thank you so much, Mike and Terry. Thank you, everyone that has joined in and commented. We appreciate you all. We'll see you next week.
All right.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
If you are trying to
Mike and
quit
Terry, you can go
drinking
ahead
or
and
doing
log
too
off,
many drugs,
and I will
continue.
chat with
You don't know me and we'll never
you
meet.
probably via
I had a
Facebook.
problem like